3, 2, 1.
You've never heard anything like this before.
Hey everybody, you're listening to the Sixth World Podcast, a roundtable discussion podcast that turned down too low, where we talk about our favorite tabletop RPG, Shadowrun. My name is Bobby Frankenberg, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Cassie Levitt. How are you doing, Cassie?
I am excellent, sir.
I am glad to hear it. We are overcoming technical difficulties today, and we are pressing forward, persevering, because we want to talk to our guest today. We have Damian Szydlo. I pronounced that correct, right, Damian?
Yeah, it's Szydlo, but it's close enough. I'll take it.
Damian Szydlo from the Violent Life podcast. Say hi, Damian.
Hi, chummers.
How's it going today?
It is going good enough. And come on, we're podcasters. We are always overcoming technical difficulties.
Isn't that the truth? I am always, it's like every week I'm like, okay, I've got it set up. Finally, next time it's just going to be, hitting the play button and ready to go. But there's always something every week. You're not wrong about that. Damian, Cassie, Damian's from Canada, right?
Yes,
And
I do.
That's amazing. Canada's this exotic place to us. People in
No,
the United
it's
States.
We like to call it.
It's like 8 hours from where I live. It's not even that far
it's
away.
like, we
It's the
like
same
to call
distance
it.
to Ohio.
We like to call it America's hat, or you would call it America's toque, right? That's what you would call it.
Oh,
up there?
you guys are our pants or our shorts.
Right. Oh, of course. It's all about perspective.
Yes.
I've never been to Canada. Do you guys ever just run into Mike Myers at the Tim Hortons just randomly?
No.
I just
But then again,
I just imagine you guys sitting over there, eating poutine, watching hockey drinking your Labatt Blue.
now you're insulting me, sir.
I know, the Canadian racism is real in this channel.
And you picked a brewery that's owned by Americans.
Yeah, right. You guys listen to what? You just listen to Celine Dion and Carly Rae Jepsen all the time, right?
Yeah. Those are our prime listening things. We like our Nickelback and our Justin Bieber.
Oh, right. That's what I thought.
I've been
I
listening
figured.
to the two of those both this week. I must be a Canadian and not know it.
We gave them to you guys. We gave them to you.
Well,
I had the pleasure of going to Canada this year for the first time, and Montreal is, I think, my favorite place I've ever visited. It was beautiful.
Wow.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
It's very
cool.
clean.
I have a quick story I want to tell you guys before we get into the news. And I think Cassie also had a story she wanted to tell. So, I was on a run today, and let's not do this. Let's get some.
Like a Shadowrun?
To clarify, it's jogging.
Yeah, I was
not-
actually running, physically running in my neighborhood. And so it was a beautiful day today. Blue skies, white puffy clouds, crisp, cool air, and I'm out there running. Birds are chirping. It's amazing. I'm just loving life. And there's this part of the run that I go on where there's a bridge that goes over a small, like part of a lake that runs through our neighborhood, and it's a really narrow sidewalk. But anyway, go over this hill, and as I'm coming to the top of the hill, just loving the run, I start hearing this low, somebody's playing some really bassy music, right? So I come to the top of the hill, and I see these two cars in the middle of the street with all their doors open and windows down, and people are sitting in the cars and bobbing their heads and enjoying this really bassy music. There's also 5 or 6 people on the sidewalk that I have to run through, okay? And one of them's got a handheld, a camcorder, and he's knelt down and he's shooting some video, and there's these other guys just waving their arms and everything. As I get closer, because I'm thinking I'm a pretty non-confrontational person, and I'm thinking oh my God, this is a narrow sidewalk. I'm gonna have to run right through these guys. What are they doing? And so I run down to them, and as I get closer, I realize they're shooting like a hip hop video. Like these guys are like these two guys. There's the guy that has got the camera pointed at him. He's rapping, and there's some other guys behind him that are like dancing and whatever. And he's got his what's the guy, the hype man. He's got his hype man behind him going like, yeah, like all that kind of thing. And they're like, and it's just amazing. So I get closer and I'm like thinking, oh God, this is gonna be awkward. I'm gonna go right through their clearly, home music video, and so I go through, but they see me and they're totally into it. They're like wanting to like they're like, hey, yeah, man. So like they're like trying to get me to join in and like like waving me over, and I'm just like really awkward, and I just kind of like run past him and go. And I'm just like, okay, no.
That was not the ending of the story I wanted. I wanted to hear that you became their backup dancer.
Well,
I did, right? Yes, I was on board with that. I was waiting for that to be.
Have you ever had that?
Change the story. Change it.
Yeah, change it.
Reason I tell you is because I feel really regretful. Like I immediately, when I ran past him, almost immediately, I was like, I should have stopped. And like I could have been, like. Who knows? Like this is a missed opportunity, Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe your awkward shuffling past might go viral. That would be amazing.
Yeah, maybe. That's what I need. Cassie, you I think you were. See here, you got some kind of Shadowrun story.
I can't top that story. I was just I was very proud of my runners last night. We did a prime run. We wrapped up killed an arch villain that's been around for 6 months now.
Wow.
So to them, only 2 of them had to burn edge to survive. Good
villains
job.
are cool. We should do a show on villains and how to incorporate them into a campaign.
We have the show on NPCs, and actually I think most of mine was going to talk about villains. So
well, great. That is on the docket. We're going to talk about that. I'm really excited about it. I wanted to right before we get onto the news, I wanted to give a quick thank you to 2 people. So we do have a Patreon. We don't push it a lot. We actually haven't pushed it at all, and we don't intend to for a little while. Me and Cassie kind of decided we're going to focus on just community building right now, and just it's there though, whatever. But we wanted to give a special shout out and thank you to 2 people that, despite our intentional lack of pushing it, signed up in our first 2 patrons for last month. Those are Kenneth Summers and ZoneGypsy on Patreon. We just thought that was really awesome, and we were really grateful that you decided to come out there and check it out anyway, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So let's uncomfortable. So let's do this.
Feel the performance of the world's first computer-activated manual transmission.
World News Today.
All right. You like that?
I like that. That encouraged the inner payday in me.
Yeah, I was out looking for stuff. All of the stingers today are going to have a theme, so just get ready for it.
I can't wait.
First up in the news is Shadowrun Anarchy. What? It's out. We talked about it. We talked about Neo Anarchy in last episode, and we briefly talked about how the prototype exists and everything. And anybody who's listening probably is aware of the prototype. But just last week, I think maybe it was just a week ago. Am I right about that?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago, really. Or when it launched.
Yeah,
it launched
the official.
Essentially over the weekend, I'm pretty sure, because I was in Iowa, and I was like, "What? Get out of here!"
Yeah, it was like on the 1st or something. So
that's really exciting. We're not going to talk a lot about Anarchy in this episode. You might think that we would, but me and Cassie had a discussion about it. We're going to talk about it next episode. We're going to have Cliff on. Mr. Johnson of the Arcology podcast is going to come on and talk to us about that. Me and Cassie decided that we wanted to get some time to really dig into it and actually have a practice session with the new rules. And as a heads up to you guys, and I'm sure we'll throw this all over social media, but if you're listening, we are going to stream that practice session, I believe. Is that right, Cassie?
Yes, on the 18th, I think. It's a Tuesday.
Yep, it's going to be on the 18th, the Tuesday before we record our next episode. And so if you're available and you want to watch it, it's going to be, I think we'll probably end up streaming sometime between around 7:30, right?
Yeah, whenever you get here, because you have the stream. So.
Yeah. Right. And I would give you a more concrete time, but kids have to go to bed. So, but we're looking forward to that, and we're going to stream it. We're going to play it for the first time, and it's going to be exciting. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about it with Mr. Johnson of the Arcology Podcast. So look forward to that. Some other pieces of news that I want to get into. So recently, Randall Bills of Catalyst Game Labs, he frequently does blog posts over on the Catalyst Game Labs Tumblr. He just recently did one, and it was about the Anarchy cover art development. And I will, if I can move my fingers fast enough, pop this link in the chat there if you guys want to check that out. But he talked about the cover art development process for the book, Shadowrun Anarchy. And I thought it was interesting. They went through 3 different covers and they showed what they were. And I'm really happy that they iterated on that because I really do think that they chose the best one.
This is the one with the elf that's walking, right? And
yeah, he's got the 2 swords out.
I want to say that I've saw that before already once.
Really?
Was it not in another rule book?
Yeah, I think it was, right? I feel like I've seen that image too somewhere.
Yeah, like because I remember everyone was going crazy for it when they saw it the first time.
I'm actually partial to the one the with the troll because I really like how that shows the difference in sizes between these 3 races.
Yeah, so I think again, they iterated through 3 versions, right? There was the first one, which was on the prototype version. The second one that Cassie's talking about, it was kind of like a couple of runners that were walking down the street with a big explosion behind them, and it showed a big troll in the middle, and he's got this like nasty looking big sword and like a detonator in his hand, and he's got a dwarf and a human beside him. And that one, it felt like Shadowrun to me, but if in the blog post, Randall Bills talks about how they were like, it felt, and I agreed, it felt like they wanted to do something with Anarchy, which is the whole point. Like, they're doing something so different. They felt like they wanted to do something just different, something that really just like jumped out and said something different. Because I agree with you that second one with the troll and the dwarf and the human with the explosion, it feels very Shadowrun. Like, I feel like that could be a really good cover somewhere.
Yeah. I definitely applaud all the guys who did that art because we were just talking about not just the art that's in the book, but like just the aesthetics and the borders and stuff that they put in it. I really love just looking at Anarchy, scrolling through the pages.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, check that out. It's interesting that they go through so many. You don't maybe think about how much they think about, what the cover is going to be, and he kind of gives some insight as to what the thought process is behind that. Another piece of news from Reddit. I was going through Reddit and I saw that you get these every once in a while, but on Roll20, if anybody uses Roll20 for their gaming for Shadowrun, Roll20 is a virtual tabletop. Well, on there, one of the benefits of using Roll20 is not just to be able to easily connect with people and share information, but they also have built-in character sheets. And there's somebody on Reddit, on the Shadowrun subreddit, who's been working on a really nice Shadowrun character sheet that everybody can use, and there were some updates. And I just thought I'd tell everybody that exists. I'm going to put a link to the Reddit thread in the show notes, but I'll also say it's not hard if you're setting up a Roll20 campaign. There's an option to choose a character sheet for your campaign, and it's in there. It's actually the Shadowrun 5th edition advanced one. There are, I think, 2 or 3. But it looks really nice. I like it. The big complaint I have. Well, before I complain, did either of you guys look at it?
I did. I actually really, really liked it because I had tried to use one of the old sheets, or maybe it was this one, the first iteration. But I really liked it, but it doesn't fit my format. But I hope people get use out of it.
It doesn't fit your format. Go ahead, Damian.
I was supposed to say, truthfully, I actually really hate how I love the idea and I love Chummer. I love how it works, but I hate the format of the character sheets. So if it works better than that for people, I'm happy for people to be able to develop their characters in Chummer and then get it onto something a little more readable to me anyway.
Yeah. My big complaint, because it's nice and it's got some cool icons and the formatting's really nice and it's laid out pretty precisely. I like that. I've used a lot of character sheets in Roll20, and I've tried developing a Shadowrun character sheet in Roll20. And it's really hard to get the precision right about column layouts and button sizes and stuff. And they do that really well with the resizing and everything. Everything seems to do really nicely. But my big complaint is that it's... Listen, if you're listening, what's his name? His name is Dark Zero on Reddit. If you're listening... red text on a black background is really hard to read, especially for weak eyes like mine. So that would be my suggestion, is maybe just a different color scheme. And I saw people suggesting this on the Reddit thread, a tabbed layout where you split everything up in tabs, and there was some discussion about whether that was good or not. Definitely, tabbed layouts are really good.
I really like it, and I flipped through some of the macros on it. I really like the way it's laid out, and his menus that he has whenever they pop up, it handles the modifiers really well, because that's one of the most challenging things I find trying to do anything Shadowrun related in Roll20 with macros and stuff, is all the math changes constantly.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing. One of the things that I did with the character, somebody in the chat, what was it, J Nugget? Am I remembering that right?
3 Nugget?
3 Nugget. I told you I have bad eyes. Looks like a J. He asked if it's fancy, if that character sheet's fancier than mine. I think it's fancier than mine. It looks nicer than the one that I made. But he's referring to that back in the day I did develop my own, and the reason I made it is actually to solve a problem that this character sheet still has not solved. And that is that something that what you just said, Cassie, made me think about it, is the fact that skills and spells and items and stuff like that you can list on your sheet, on the Shadowrun character sheet, are not referenceable in macros as like variables, as dynamically changing variables. It's possible to do that. You might not think, because you're just using, in the code, you're just using this auto expanding list. But again, if you're listening and you would like to do that, I could send you the code that I did, and it would give you an idea of how I accomplished that. It's possible to do, is all I'm saying, if you want to try.
It is.
It's difficult, and it also increases the amount of code on the sheet by a lot, which is... I've seen some guys who had a really cool one for 3rd edition, and it did a lot of that stuff. The downside is they'd have to restart their API every so often, and it also made the sheets really slow to load. Right? Yes, and that is the big downside. So if you're worried about speed, which, I mean, that's something definitely to worry about, because people who are playing who might not have as fast computers might have trouble with it. So that's ultimately why I never published the sheet for public use, is because I could never figure out a way to keep that lag and speed. Yeah, I've so far never seen any of the people who use the really detailed character sheets publish them. I think in my time of playing on various Roll20 tables. Yeah. It's and that's probably why. But we're going to go ahead and skip these next 2 news items so that we can get into the next part of our I bumped my mic. And here we go.
An available Delco Bose stereo with 4 never-before speakers, separately engineered for sound that's out of this world.
Never before.
You get the theme yet? It's just all pulled from the same 1980s super advanced Corvette commercial that I found.
Those speakers sound fantastic to
That
me.
explains a lot, actually.
Okay, so we've got some question and answers at this point in the show, every show we do a Q&A segment where people send us questions and we answer them. Later in the show, we're going to do some specifically Q&A directed at Damian, but this is just general Q&A that you guys can send us anytime you want. Feel free to ask us a couple of questions in the live chat if you'd like to. Cassie will keep an eye on those and help me if we have time to answer those. But the ones who sent them ahead, we're going to answer those. If you have questions and you want to send them to us, you can send them to theshow at sixworldpodcast.com. That's our email. Also, you can tweet them to at 6worldpodcast. That's the number 6 World Podcast. Or you could... those are the best ways. Let's just stick with those. I was going to say fill out a form. I don't think I've set up a form on the website yet to ask questions. Maybe I should do that. But anyway, first question comes from Oddmage on Reddit, I believe. Oddmage, if you're out there, you know who you are. He asked, "How's the Emerald Grid?" We're going to actually jump right. Which?
What have you done to Bobby?
Which do you think would be more new?
You want me to help you with this one? You want me to get this?
Yeah, I think my RAM is corrupted also. No, I got it. Here we go. How's the Emerald Grid fit into the pink mohawk scale? Do you want to see more hero type or, black trench coat is what he's asking, so.
Yeah. So the Emerald Grid is... we have a mix of both. We have some dozen GMs, and everyone likes to do something different. My runs tend to always be really black trench coaty. We have several others that do really more fun pink mohawk, even if some of them will kill you. So it really depends on playing with a few GMs and seeing who you like and rolling with that. Because, I don't know.
Hey, Damian, have you ever been on the Emerald Grid over there?
I have not yet.
Yeah.
Last one of the online communities that I was really part of was back in Runner Hub, which is where I met Cassie in the first place.
Yeah.
And which was actually probably the last game I actually played on the Runner Hub. So
You should fix that and go back and visit them.
just too much going on.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know, right?
No kidding. I have to keep
the last
coming up
part of
with
that question-
excuses to Cassie for why I can't make it onto the Emerald Grid.
Well, yeah, but we got a bunch of grid players, and we're gonna play with you on next Tuesday. Right?
Yeah,
not this
Anarchy.
Tuesday, next.
Watch it live.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. But the last part of the question, do we prefer more hero types? Typically, yes. We do a lot more hooding and stuff like that. So,
Cool.
yeah, we like the heroes and anti-heroes.
Yeah, I think you were telling me the other day that the big thing about the Emerald Grid is that you really focus on narrative style, storytelling type games, right?
Yeah.
Like players and whatnot.
Yeah, especially if you stay off my table, because I have an obsession with numbers. But everyone else loves to do much more narrative.
Right.
So it's a lot of fun. But,
next
but yeah, like
question-
that with
Yeah. Next question is from Scott Flowers. He says, "I've started reading a lot of the Shadowrun novels. What fiction do you guys recommend?"
Shadowrun fiction.
Yeah. What Shadowrun fiction do you guys recommend? Don't want to open a huge can of worms.
I'm gonna let Damian go first on this one.
Well, other than the classic Shadowrun fiction, I haven't actually taken in any of the new stuff, which is an awful thing. But I remember Burning Bright, 2XS, and a couple other ones from back there. And then the only other stuff that I've really taken in recently, just steps outside of Shadowrun, which I'm going to break your rule right there, because I do what I want. Is still Cyberpunk though. would be the Sprawl trilogy from William Gibson and
William
Snow
Gibson,
Crash.
of course. Nobody's going to fault you for stepping out for that.
And then the Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, which was fantastic, if a little weird at times.
Yeah, it's certainly not, like revealing or revolutionary for me to say that my introduction to cyberpunk was Neuromancer, William Gibson's Neuromancer.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend William Gibson, even though he seems to have a really salty opinion of Shadowrun.
He does. And I remember as a teenager going to see Johnny Mnemonic in the theaters before I knew about Shadowrun. I was into Shadowrun at the time, but I had no idea about anything outside of Shadowrun as far as cyberpunk went. And I was like, this ripped off Shadowrun.
Yeah.
And yeah.
My favorite. I haven't read a lot of Shadowrun fiction in particular. So the first thing that I read was what's that one? I was hoping that I would find the title before, but I'm really bad at this. So the one that was written recently, it's got the I'm going to skip to the other recommendation until I can figure that one out. As soon as they started putting out the old original kind of Shadowrun novels, because they're reprinting all those now, or they're not reprinting them necessarily, but they're putting them out in PDF format. You can get ebooks of all of those old ones. And when they started doing that, I checked it out. So the first, the Secrets of Power trilogy, which is Never Deal with a Dragon, Choose Your Enemies Carefully, and Find Your Own Truth. Those were really good, especially because they did a really, really good job of like introducing you to the idea of Shadowrun and the fictional, universe and everything. It was pretty cool. It's your classic Shadowrun story, though. It's like a team of people get together and they're put together to do this thing, and they do it, and everything goes wrong, and they try to get their way out of it. But it's good.
Yeah, mine is so I am ashamed to admit I've only read one, and that is Neat. So I highly recommend it. It was awesome. I went and bought the other books on that series. Yeah. But I am still fairly new to Shadowrun, so I haven't read a lot of the fiction yet, but I'm looking forward to it. The outside of Shadowrun, I was drawn more to urban fantasy, so there's a book series called Borderlands that is fantastic, and that was really my introduction to this sort of category that is Shadowrun from the urban fantasy side.
And Neat is a novella written by Russell Zimmerman, by the way, about his wonderful noir detective kind of character. Names are escaping me today.
Is it Kincaid, wasn't
it? Kincaid, yeah.
And isn't Shaken the sequel to that one? Because I was actually about to say that I heard those ones were fantastic.
Yeah, Shaken and then Stirred, I think, is the one after that.
Yeah, and then I also heard that Sail Away, Sweet Sister was actually really good too. So a lot of things I have to read.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, and honestly, I think most of it. If I had to say jump in anywhere, and maybe this is my bias because I like Russell Zimmerman a lot, is to check out Neat the novella and Shaken, No Job Too Small, the follow-up, the full-length novel to that. So Scott, start there, and then you'll love Shadowrun fiction. You'll keep going. There's no dearth of options to choose from.
It's true.
Next question and final question for our initial Q&A here, I think, before we get onto our main topic, is from James O'Neill. He says, I can't find... he was asking about ghouls in Shadowrun, and he said that he was looking around and he can't find if the UCAS, the UCAS, the United Canadian American States... has recognized ghouls as metahumans or not, and if they still have an ongoing bounty for them. I pulled in some of my contacts. Actually, I Facebooked Opti. who knows everything there is to know about Shadowrun lore. And he gave me some information there, and I definitely have to credit him for that because I didn't look any of this up. I just made him do it for me. So the short answer to your question is no, they're not considered metahumans by the UCAS anymore, but they were for a short period of time. The story is there's this relief worker out in Chicago. His name was Tamir Gray, and he worked with the ghoul community there, and he was helping them out with all the terrible stuff that was happening there. And one thing he eventually ended up getting infected himself, and he became a sort of leader of the ghouls out there. And so through all of his work, he worked really hard to get them recognized as metahumans by the UCAS government. Or I think that might have actually happened after he died, because he was mysteriously died, killed, probably assassinated. And I think then they were recognized as metahumans because he was such a great guy. But after that, subsequently, their recognition as metahumans was repealed, and they have not been able to get it back since. And it's kind of a political, contentious mire with all that, especially since in recent years there's been a lot of reports of the hunger that ghouls experience, because they have to, feed on metahuman flesh. That has apparently, over the past couple of years, been increasing, that urge, that hunger, and that's caused a lot of, arguments on both sides about whether or not they should be recognized. Do ghouls appear in any of your guys' campaigns ever prominently?
Absolutely. There was a ghouls on our prime run last night.
Nice.
He was a former runner named Z.
Oh, so
I do know.
So like good guy ghouls, not mindless, terrible zombie.
Yeah.
Brain eaters.
Yeah, they actually were helping kill a toxic witch and clean a plague spirit out of the barrens. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I do know, I believe, since Market Panic gets hinted at, they can be citizens of Evo, right? I think Evo has said anything that can demonstrate sapience and essentially won't eat their neighbor.
Well, that's Evo for you.
Yeah.
Wait, did that sound like I hate ghouls? I didn't mean to.
Pop them brain eaters. No, in my campaigns, it can go either way. We've had some just cold-hearted bounty runs, and we've had the ghoul community just trying to get by and living underneath trying to go unnoticed and live underneath the watch of anybody who would collect those bounties.
Very first run I sent my runners on in the very first actual play that I ran more than a year ago. They were sent to go find out what was wrong with some piece of equipment that was in a cave somewhere, and it turned out that the cave was overrun, quote unquote overrun by ghouls, but they were like a bunch of nice ghoul people, and they were just trying to live there, and they didn't know it was anybody's equipment, and they used it. There was some really some dude that was a really good engineer and everything, and he had kind of reclaimed some of the stuff that was being stored back deep in this cave, and so they had to deal with that, what do we do? Do we just say screw these guys because they're ghouls, or and they ended up helping him out and actually earning the whole group as kind of like a contact. So,
and somebody named him in the chat. My favorite ghoul of all time that I've met so far is Lanky Jack, and I believe Bamps created him, or at least it's one of them over at the Runner Hub. He is a harvester and creepy, and he is awesome. So
if you guys like ghouls,
if
you listen to or if you don't listen to the Arcology podcast actual play, they have a recurring contact that was introduced pretty early on in their actual play, Frank the Ghoul. And he's a pretty funny, cool character. He's a guy that they talk to a lot, and he's your classic kind of ghoul who's turned, and he doesn't like that he has to do what he does. He's actually kind of disgusted by the fact that he has to do this, but I mean, what are you gonna do? You got to survive somehow, and but it's pretty cool. He's one of my favorite NPCs on that actual play. But so let's do this here.
Liquid crystal displays. 14 separate instrument readouts, English or metric, all updated 16 times every operating second.
liquid crystal displays.
You continuously impress me, sir.
This is. Are you bedazzled by my technology that I'm advertising?
I am. I want it all.
So what we wanted to talk about today, something that me and Cassie thought would be fun to talk about with you, Damian, is this idea of different play styles in Shadowrun. But we don't want to do it like we'll briefly go over what those play styles are if we happen to have people listening who aren't familiar with the different terms, but that are often used in Shadowrun. But we want to take a different kind of approach to that. People talk about it a lot already, and we wanted to kind of talk about how those play styles feature in your games and how they relate to this idea of heroism in Shadowrun. So, Cassie, why don't you start by telling very, very briefly and quickly what we're talking about when we talk about play styles in Shadowrun?
So when I started, I could never figure out what the dreck those were. I had no idea. I couldn't find any definitions. And then luckily somebody posted a link, which will be included in the show notes, of a very brief description that all the credit goes to somebody on a forum who explained them. And he did it by giving examples of movies at the end of them. And so Pink Mohawk is your fun, crazy movie where your characters are always going to win. And so like The Expendables, I think, was an example of that. Mirror Shades is a little bit more serious, and you're going to face some deadlier enemies, but typically you're still going to win. I can't remember an example he uses off of that, but I think Deadpool maybe was one of them. And then Black Trenchcoat is the very serious realism element where you're often, if you do things wrong, the hammer's coming down, and it has many more consequences to it. And I think somebody mentioned Blade Runner as an example of that one.
Very dark.
Very dark. Yeah. So that's briefly what they are, at least how I play them.
Yeah, and I think those are good rundown definitions of the typical play styles. You most of the time you hear people talk about the pink mohawk versus black trench coat kind of sliding scale. And I say sliding scale because it's really, it would be a false dichotomy to say that one or the other.
And those two in 5th edition are actually defined sort of in Run Faster, I think on page 18. It'll give you like the verses of which one is which. For me, even as a GM, have narrowed it down to my dice pools. I have goons that won't roll anything over usually a 12, and Pink Mohawk, where at Black Trenchcoat, I'll roll 18 or more. As a way to quick guide myself when I'm creating opposition for those kind of themes.
It's funny. One of the first topics I ever went through in the Violent Life Informational, back when we really sucked and I was literally talking into like a box, was actually in regards to play styles, because I had seen on Reddit at the time a lot of people throwing a lot of ideas of what they were back and forth. And as much as I always hear that, Pink Mohawk, everyone just assumes, this is your, what is that, that Kung Fury or anything like that. Like that can't be Pink Mohawk, but that is like Pink Mohawk. It can also be your Smoking Aces, and it's anything that is just, it is fun and gutsy and just, you throw yourself out there, and to hell with the consequences, because the consequences are coming back at you. Whatever.
Right.
We'll light half the city on fire. It's all right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do tend to do them a lot more narrative driven, right? And so Pink Mohawk, I'm all more about the story versus trying to get down mechanics or realism. Wait, keep going. Sorry.
It's the feeling. It's the feeling that you have to go after when you're tackling each of these. Where your Black Trenchcoat, you get into a lot more of that serious kind of heist feel, and I've heard people throw in that like the Matrix is Black Trenchcoat. No, just because they're wearing black trench coats doesn't make it Black Trenchcoat at all. If anything, the Matrix is more Pink Mohawk, truthfully. Yeah. Because you truly are just going in guns a-blazing, and who cares?
No kidding. Yeah.
But I myself have always been what I like to call Pink Trenchcoat.
Sure.
I I have the want and means and the care to actually try to plan things out. And then when I actually get to executing those plans never work. So screw it. And my characters have too much attitude for them to actually work anyway. So the careful side of me plans, and then I throw it out the door as soon as we get into anything.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned what you did, Cassie, about your tendency toward narrative style play, because my feeling has always been that the Pink Mohawk style is definitely on the narrative storytelling end of the spectrum. A lot of role play, a lot of, just focus on this telling really fun, good stories. Whereas Black Trenchcoat has always felt to me like you're moving more towards the simulationist kind of version of Shadowrun, where it's a lot of
really good way to put it.
Yeah, where what I mean by simulationist, I guess, is you're rolling dice, you're trying to be really careful and accurate and say, okay, I need, whereas in, I'm gonna go over here and what dice do I have to roll to do it and stuff like that. But in Pink Mohawk, you're just like, I just do it,
Right. And I often like the whole rule of cool. I will usually let fly a lot more in a Pink Mohawk. You're welcome to try it in some of my Black Trenchcoat runs. It's just the challenge that you face is going to be more difficult than roll some dice and also to a reasonable margin. You're probably going to succeed because it sounds awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like the three of us here all kind of have at least some sort of a tendency towards Pink Mohawk, but I don't want anybody in our discussion to get the idea that I think that Black Trenchcoat is like the wrong way to go. It's just for different people, I
was gonna say I'm the opposite. No, I almost all of my runs are Black Trenchcoat.
Oh, okay, there you
or
go.
At least Mirror Shades. I very rarely do a Pink Mohawk. I will sometimes do what I call Black Mohawk, where I'm still rolling 18 dice at you, but we're gonna tell a good narrative story.
Right. Go ahead, Damian.
Sorry, what I was about to say is that I feel, and I actually said it back then in that podcast, that Shadowrun is born and it gets its strength for being somewhere in the middle. Truthfully, I feel that Shadowrun is Pink Mohawk in a Black Trenchcoat world. Yeah. You are runners, and I mean, I'm an old school runner, much like Opti. All my characters have a kind of stick it to the man and anti-establishment kind of thing, but you are against the establishment generally. So if you were to imagine the world from the corp side of things, it would all appear very Black Trenchcoat. And if you're looking up as a runner, it's not like that at all. So
that's a really good point. And in the chat, Phelan makes a good point along those lines, that sometimes the dice results build a good story. And I think he's talking about, the Black Trenchcoat style where you're rolling a lot of dice. And that's an excellent point. Sometimes if you focus too much on the rule of cool in Pink Mohawk, you're just throwing out these cool ideas that you want to do, and you're just these like gung-ho heroes that are punching through walls and saving the girl and like getting out and whatnot. But sometimes the best, most interesting stories are told in the failures that happen, and those don't happen unless you're trying to be simulationist in it, at least to some extent.
And that's a great way to put it, because personally I love failures and negative qualities to a certain point, because that's how you get those interesting stories. Where Pink Mohawk, I will focus a lot more on those when I have a story to tell, or I want my characters to interact together, or kind of that role-playing chance where you don't have to focus so much on the situation. And then I flip to Black Trenchcoat when I want to do something that's serious. It's going to be scary. It's going to be character building. It's going to have some consequences. And I'll usually throw dice equal to what they are throwing, so that it's kind of more up to chance, and we'll see what happens.
Right. 10 Tranced in the chat asks a question that I think is a good one, saying, does character level affect the style of play? It would seem that legendary characters would have an easier time running Black Trenchcoat because they have higher and stronger contacts, magic, and equipment. I agree with what you're already saying, Cassie, is that no. For two reasons that jump right at me, which is, first, it's the GM's job to make it difficult, right? They just make it more difficult. Second, though, Shadowrun, I've always felt, is a really one of the things I like about Shadowrun is that because it's not like one of those class-based systems where you're becoming heroic and awesome in a particular, like I'm a paladin, I'm gonna become the best paladin. You know, you're just a dude with a bunch of skills, and it seems like it's almost like the longer you play the game, you get lots of karma and you improve your skills and everything, and you get more like options. But I don't ever feel like I get a lot stronger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a good way to do that if you have a good GM is to throw you against things, progress over a couple months, and then throw you back against what you started with, just in a small encounter, and you'll suddenly see like how far you've progressed and how much easier this is, right? Sure. But I would say to Trance, if you want a good example of why you could never truly beat the game, if you will, go find in Clutch of Dragons of 4th edition the sheet for Harlequin, right? Like, these people exist in the world, right. And they are there to always be the gods of the world, kind of.
Right. When I think about the high level prime characters necessarily being Pink Mohawk, I always try to think back to the run one of the Apex plot runs that I listened in on from the Runner Hub. And I literally heard a man suplex a dragon. And that is about as Pink Mohawk as it gets.
Yeah, no kidding. I think if I was
fun run.
Dead Man did that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I was shooting plot bullets. I think I said one thing during the entire run.
Oh, you were on that run, weren't you?
It was fun to watch. Yeah, he smacked down an intimidation on a dragon.
That's funny.
That's how it started before he suplexed it at the end. What really happened in the scene, the dragon tried to take off and Deadman just jumped up and grabbed it and pulled it back down.
Hey,
it's a little silly.
Do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
I don't want to go away from this conversation without talking about that thing that the concept of a hero in Shadowrun, and maybe how it changes in these different styles. But it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I know that I've talked about with Cassie a lot, and that's why we wanted to talk about it. Damian, let me just start by asking you the question. What do you think? Do you think that you can be a hero in Shadowrun? And if so, well, why don't you just start there? Do you think you can be a hero in Shadowrun?
Absolutely, to a point anyway. I think that can you be a hero like in an epic fantasy? I don't think so. Shadowrun's a little bit more grounded than that, even on the Pink Mohawk side of things.
Sure.
But I think that you can go through your entire career as a Shadowrunner trying to do the right thing. You might not always do the right thing, but I think that you really can play that way, and I kind of have done that before. I mostly usually play anti-heroes, but I think that you definitely can be. The character that sticks out in my mind, at least in that most of us are familiar with, is I really feel that Opti is kind of a hero,
Absolutely.
a Shadowrun hero.
That's
so
a
I would
good.
say yes.
So that leads directly into the follow-up question, which is, what if you can be a hero? What is a hero in Shadowrun? I know you've given an example just now of Opti, but what does a hero do? Who is a hero in the Sixth World?
That's a tough one, because I really think that it depends on where you are, what's going on. I think that it's easy to be able to say a hero is somebody who's sticking up for the little guy. Especially in a world like Shadowrun, where it's an oppressive dystopia. So a hero could be the guy trying to make a small difference on a daily basis, or a hero could be the kind of guy who is trying to make large sweeping changes by doing things without trying to make much collateral damage, maybe. I don't know. That's where it gets tough to be a hero, because it becomes a very, very, very fine line between being a hero and being a terrorist in a world like Shadowrun.
Yeah, and Cassie laughs, but and it is funny to say, but it's very true. Like, because in a lot of ways, Shadowrunners, in a lot of times, in a lot of instances, Shadowrunners often are terrorists. At least
People
from
love
somebody's
technology.
perspective,
Yeah.
People love As Technology. As Technology owns Stuffer Shack. As
Right,
Technology owns the stuff that you like. You blowing As Technology up is not something that people like. And you blowing As Technology up robs them of possibly their job, their family. You damage things that are integral to their lives. I mean, being a hero can quickly make you not a very popular person.
And As a Technology is a good example because in Market Panic, it talks a lot about how the writers did a fantastic job of this, of how they are the ones who run the jobs that are those moral quandaries. Like you will go rescue a toxic shaman from a place and get rid of it, but then they just return it loose somewhere else. You can go save a bunch of people from a terrorist organization, but one of them's a child molester. Whoops! Like it's a really great corp to find those out. I don't know that you can be a hero in Shadowrun. I think it's just not in the universe and the theme of the game. Like you, I can't even imagine where you'd start.
Someone tell that old crow to stop it.
Yeah, well,
I know, right?
It's funny because I think about people like Opti, and I think about, most recently, I think a lot about our actual play, Cassie and Damian. You both are on the actual play, and one of the people on there is Mr. Johnson's character, Elric. And I think a lot about him when I think about, can you be a hero? Because there's a character who's trying really hard to do the right thing and make a difference even in his small way.
Also the only character to actually reduce somebody into primal components such as ash.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to our actual play, you should definitely listen to it. Mr. Johnson destroys somebody.
I appreciate that Opti is kind of on this pedal because I do love Opti. I would see him as a hero, but at the same time, like he gives you jobs to go that you're probably going to go kill people on, right? Like I remember there was one last year about like getting back a data lock, I think, from disassemblers, right? So, well, you're not probably going to go negotiate with disassemblers for that.
So there goes. So that kind of leads into what I think the hero is, or in Shadowrun, which is. Because I agree with you, Cassie, but I also agree with you, Damian. Cassie, I agree with you that Shadowrun is set up that you just will not be the hero. You cannot be the hero. Everything in the world is set against you. Like everything is stacked way against you. You're nothing to these corporations. You're just nobody, and you're being hired by them and constantly put in situations that are going to test your moral fiber or make you do things that you never thought you were going to do. But I think that the hero in Shadowrun is a very existential hero. Okay, it's a person who is trying to do the right thing, and they'll never get there. But the hero is the one who keeps trying no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the hero is definitely the person who succeeds at the small victories, right? Yeah. So you save somebody who's been harmed, or you feed a community for a day. Like those are definitely the heroes in Shadowrun. The Robin Hoods, right? That's what hooding is. Like it's about being Robin Hood.
Exactly. And you have to do questionable bad things in order to help somebody, and it's all about perspective, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And Robin Hood was always my favorite fictional character, so that may be one of the reasons I just realized that I'm attracted to the Shadowrun setting. But yeah, I think that's how you win.
I agree, and I think that puts a nice hat on that. Anything you want to say else about that, Damian, about being a hero in Shadowrun?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. As a hero, you keep it right here. You try to actually do the right thing on a regular basis, and you keep being a neo-anarchist. That's how you be a hero.
Yeah.
Not true. Join the corporations. Be a loyalist.
That's right.
Loyalist. Yeah.
That's right. All right. So let's.
Tomorrow is taking shape.
Oh God, I can't wait to look for more of those. They make me smile. I've got a lot of different things that I didn't use. In fact, I meant to say this earlier before we get into Q&A for Damian. Apparently, you might not have realized this, but Donald Trump is into cyberpunk. Did you know that? Here's this.
The security aspect of cyber is...
The cyber.
Yeah, the
I've heard a
cyber.
lot about the cyber.
And that's all I'll play of that. I don't want
son
to...
is amazing.
I don't want to... Yeah, right. I don't want to turn this into a political podcast. There's a lot of cool things that I found that I'll never get to... That I never got to use. I capped that out in particular, so I can just play that whenever.
We've heard a lot of the cyber up here in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. So let's get to some questions, as I said. First one, we're going to do these kind of rapid fire as best we can, Damian, so you're on your toes. Answer some questions. What we do every episode, at the end of the episode, we take our guest, we collect questions from people throughout the week and also during the episode. Those of you listening live, if you have additional questions you'd like Damian to answer, go ahead and ask them in the chat. Some people I've seen doing this, what will help us is if you preface questions for us with a bunch of question marks. It'll be easier for us to see. And Cassie will keep an eye out for those and pull them out for us. The first question comes from Alex Blackburn on Facebook. Yes, what's Damian's favorite Shadowrun novel? I feel like we might have already answered this, but let's answer it again.
Yeah, I really think, as far as Shadowrun novels, I really have fond memories of Burning Bright and all of the events that went around that. So I'd have to say that would be probably my favorite.
Excellent. Okay, well, next question is from John Hutchins. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he's on Twitter. I think it was at it was John. We'll just say John.
John's awesome.
Because he's got a weird Twitter handle as well. He says, I need to know, are you recently or have you ever made a deal with a dragon?
So I was actually looking forward to that question, and I said as much on Twitter because I have not, but Double V certainly has. And as we continue to go along the meta plot over at Violent Life, it'll start to become more and more apparent that she is essentially caught between a very powerful AI and a greater dragon.
Right, and for those, I'm going to stop you for just a second. For those who might not know, Damian has the Violent Life podcast, which is a Shadowrun radio drama, kind of audio drama, and the main character in there is Vendetta Violent. That's who he's talking about when he says Double V. But continue.
Yeah, so essentially she is caught between the warring interests, and it's funny because she's such a rebel, but she doesn't know what the heck to do because on one side there's an AI that's essentially that is obsessed with her and her family, and on the other side of it there is the greater dragon Ronaby, who will be coming in later, and because she has a varied relationship over there. So you have two great forces crushing in on a little ant that she is, and she's trying to get out from between them, and that is going to continue along and really start to blossom very soon. We've been working up to it for over the year as we kind of expand things. So.
Exciting. So next question is from a Reddit user, The Shang. I love this question because he starts by saying, I don't even know who these people are, but I would like to know the best story they have about when it all went to hell. You know, the time when the dice were just totally against you and everything just kept going wrong to the point it was almost comical. It's happened to all of us at least once.
See, my group doesn't need the dice for that to happen.
They make all those situations for themselves.
Exactly that. And it's funny because I was actually talking to my group. I ditched my live game. They're playing out there right now.
So Damian has said, screw you guys. I've got more important things to do than play Shadowrun with you chumps.
They gave me a lot of grief over it. But one of the things that we discussed, because they were like, oh, well, what about the oil rig run? I'm like, oh, the oil rig run that we spent a session doing the footwork with, got our technomancer to sneak us onto a supply boat and get out there, get into the facility, capture a wage slave there, and basically mind probe him with our mind mage and get all of that stuff out of his head. And the plan was to mind wipe him, but I guess the player totally blanked out and took his silenced pistol and popped him instead. And it turned into a giant war zone after that. And that ended up in a toxic mage liquefying my character's insides. So it was almost impossible not to laugh at just all that planning to end up like that, and we're all just like, "What did you do that for?" We don't need the dice to have that happen.
That's good. Eris. So we've got another Reddit user, Eraswill. I am going to decide that's how it's pronounced. Asks, real quick answer. What about your personal preference on assault rifle barrel slots for modifications? I'm assuming. Do you go with the silencer? Do you go with the silencer, the gas vent, or a long barrel?
Depends who and what I'm playing. I really do favor the sniper type character. So you'll see me use a lot of silencers and such. But as Payday, for example, when I'm outfitting drones and such, if I'm using an assault rifle or anything like that, I'm using the gas vents and things that help with
if you're going to be
recoil.
firing a lot of bullets in a short amount of time, go with the gas vent. That helps.
Pretty much.
With that recoil. Bamps on Reddit asks, I like this first question. He asks, who's your favorite guest that you've ever had on your podcast?
It's my wife flipping me off.
Hello.
10, come on.
Yeah.
No, it's 10. Come on.
It's live, eh?
We're being we're being
come on, you're holding up the game.
That's right. We are keeping him away from his game.
See, that's what happens when you marry role players.
That's right.
But
it's a good problem.
Sorry,
to
you were saying?
Who's your favorite? Bamps wants you to tell everyone that he's your favorite guest that you've ever had on your podcast.
What a prick. Actually, it was funny. I was reading that one, and I hate to cop out, but every guest has kind of given me something very unique and different. Having the Hyper RPG guys on really kind of took into mind how to best be a group in a game. Bamps, I'm able to really develop a lot of cool stuff. I was able to hit home a lot of world building stuff with you, and finally Opti recently was just fantastic to have on, just to kind of get deep on something. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, we're gonna stop with questions there. I know there's a bunch of questions in the chat. What we're gonna do is, if me and Cassie can answer some of those questions. If Damian stays after for the post-show, he can answer some. I know he's got a game going on, so we won't keep him if he's got to go.
This is what the GM gets for blowing me up. I literally tried to get out of the area of effect of a C4 explosion and took 10p at the end of last session. So I have no idea what's happened to my character, honestly. So
you're not even there. They're just got a really bad joke for you in the other room. Yeah.
I know the other character had to get multiple cyber limbs and facial reconstruction. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, here we go. Here's some outro music. All right, you like that one. All right, real quick, Damian, go ahead and give, I know you want to plug your podcast. Anything else you want to make sure people know about you and how to get in touch with you and where to hear your stuff?
Go listen to our show at www.violentlifepodcast.com. You can also find me on Twitter at MyViolentLife. And if you felt like supporting the show, we're also on Patreon. You can find us pretty easily there as well.
All right. And Cassie, what about you? You got any things you want to plug this week?
No,
Discord.
I had nothing this week. Discord's always good, but no, the live thing we're doing not next week, the week after next. Yeah, the Anarchy Show. That I want to plug that again. Yeah.
Tuesday, what was it? The 18th.
18th, yes.
It's
18th,
Tuesday
around
the 18th.
7-ish.
7:30.
Yeah.
Look out for that. We'll be tweeting about it from at least the @6world podcast account. Probably I'll tweet it from my my other account as well. But anyway, just keep a look on the Facebook page, 6world podcast on Facebook, that kind of stuff. We'll let you guys know. But it'll be here. Twitch.tv/6world podcast. If you want to watch us playing Shadowrun Anarchy, you want to get a taste of what it's like and watch. I'm going to be playing. I'm leaning towards a ladies' man face character who's also like a fighting guy. Like I've got this interesting idea that he's also got this really short temper. And he's really impatient also, so I'm hoping to get us into a lot of trouble. Yeah. Cassie's going to be running the game, so that'll be
sort of. We've got to figure that out. Anarchy's got some interesting rules about that, but I'm primarily running it.
Yeah, so I'm Bobby. Hopefully you
Are you?
I think so.
Was that a question? I'm Bobby.
I'm Bobby.
After the evening I've had, maybe. I did want to plug our Complex Action actual play, especially because I've got two of our cast members on the show right now. Damian plays Payday and Eon. Cassie plays Pillar, their face. Payday's the rigger. But check that out. It's on wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, all that kind of stuff. It's just Complex Action, or you can search Complex Action Actual Play. Or you can find it on the website, Complex Action website. I finally got that set up. complexaction.net/actual play, one word. And there's a cool interactive map I put on there, too. There was somebody in the Violent Life Discord that requested it, and it turns out it was really easy to set up. So it's actually the map that my players use and see to interact with the world and know what's going on. And I put it up there for everybody to see, so there's lots of cool stuff on there. You can get the most recent episodes on there, and lots of cool links. You can also find me on Twitter @GMFunkyTown, or on my YouTube channel, Complex Action, youtube.com/ComplexAction. You can find this show on Twitter @6worldpodcast. You can email us at theshow@sixthworldpodcast.com. Our website is sixthworldpodcast.com. And from me, from Cassie, and from our amazing guest, Damian, bye-bye.
See you in the shadows.
Oh, wait, let's do that louder so it doesn't sound so terrible. Here we go. Pro podcasters ending the show.